There is a wound you don't speak about, not because you have forgotten, but because you remember too clearly. Tonight, we are not here to heal it. We are here to understand why it was carved into you in the first place. You don't understand why they left. You don't understand how someone who once looked at you like you were the morning sun could turn away and never look back. You don't understand how someone who once said, "I need you," could one day live as if you never existed. You replay it every night, like a film projected onto the back of your closed eyelids. Scenes of laughter, small moments of tenderness, the last conversation, the final silence. You wonder what you said wrong. You wonder what you failed to become. You wonder if you could have twisted yourself just a little more tightly, smiled a little sweeter, apologized a little faster, loved a little harder. If maybe, just maybe, they would have stayed. But the truth is darker and more sacred. Carl Jung once revealed to us that the self, the deep eternal soul that exists beneath all our masks, cares more about our awakening than it does about our comfort. When the life you are living becomes a mausoleum, when the roles you are playing turn you into a ghost of yourself, the self begins to dismantle everything that no longer serves your becoming. Not because it is cruel, but because it refuses to let you die while you are still breathing. Carl Jung, the great psychologist of the soul, showed us something most people never learn. That healing is not about fixing ourselves. It's about remembering who we were before the world taught us to forget. Sometimes the ones who leave are not villains. They are instruments. They are midwives of your rebirth. They are sacred destroyers, summoned by your own unconscious to tear down the illusions you could no longer survive inside. They left because on some level, you were already leaving the life that included them. You thought they were your home, but they were the fire that burned the false house down. You thought they were your salvation, but they were only the mirror showing you how far you had wandered from yourself. You thought they were your future, but they were simply the closing scene of a chapter that your soul could not afford to repeat. When they left, you didn't just lose a person. You lost an entire version of yourself, the one who believed that love was earned through sacrifice, that worth was conditional, that safety was found in obedience, silence, and smallness. You grieve not just them. You grieve the self you became to be loved by them. You grieve the smiles you forced, the boundaries you erased, the needs you swallowed, the dreams you abandoned. You grieve the pieces of your own soul you offered at their altar, and the realization that it was never enough to make them stay. Carl Jung warned us that when we fall into love, we often fall into projection, casting our lost innocence, our abandoned wonder, our forgotten wholeness onto another person. We see in them the parts of ourselves we no longer recognize. We worship them because we cannot yet worship ourselves. We chase them because we are running from the graveyards we carry inside. And when they leave, it feels like death, because it is. The death of the illusion. The death of the hope that someone else could complete what we abandoned. And in that death, there is a brutal, sacred invitation to meet the face you tried to replace, to reclaim the voice you silenced to be chosen, to finally choose yourself. Some wounds are so ancient that when they are reopened, they feel like the end of the world. But they are not endings. They are revelations. You thought you were mourning the person, but you are mourning the promises you tied to their existence. You are mourning the parts of yourself you gave away in exchange for their approval. You are mourning the illusion that you could be rescued from your own unlived life. There is a place inside you, a burned, abandoned house, where all the versions of yourself that you betrayed still wait. The child who loved too freely, the dreamer who dared too brightly, the warrior who fought too openly. They stand among the ashes, watching the smoke rise, still hoping you might one day return. When they left, when the door slammed shut without warning, when the silence swallowed you whole, it was not just grief you felt. It was the sound of your soul tearing through the illusions you had woven around your loneliness. Carl Jung warned us about what happens in these moments. He called it the collapse of the persona, the disintegration of the mask we create to survive in a world that demands we be acceptable rather than authentic. The persona is the mask we create to survive the expectations of the world, a costume we wear so we can be loved, accepted, protected, but at the cost of forgetting who we truly are. Carl Jung told us, in his own words, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself and others think one is." When the persona shatters, through betrayal, abandonment, grief, it feels like death. Because the mask dies, the lie dies, the image you built to be loved disintegrates, and beneath it, trembling, naked, gasping for air, stands the self, the real you, the one who was never meant to be small enough to fit inside the conditions they placed upon your existence. I will tell you a story. Once there was a woman who loved a boy who promised her the world. He was her sun, her moon, her map back to herself, or so she believed. She twisted herself into shapes he would find pleasing. She muted her laughter when it was too loud. She dulled her dreams when they threatened to shine brighter than his. She became the perfect echo of what he wanted, because she thought that if she could become enough of him, he would stay. One day he left. No reason, no explanation. Just a silence so vast it sounded like a scream. For years, she hated him. For years, she hated herself. But one night, standing alone under a bruised sky, she realized something so violent it almost knocked her to her knees. He had never left her. He had left the version of her that was dying to be loved. He had left the hollow sculpture, the shell, the ghost. He had left because her soul had begun to crack through the surface, because something too wild, too untamed, too sacred had started to rise, and he could not stay for what she was becoming. You think you were abandoned because you were too much, too broken, too wrong. But maybe you were left because the soul you are becoming could never have survived inside the cage you built around your own longing. They left, not because you were unworthy, but because you were beginning to wake up, and they were not your destination. They were only the last closed door you had to walk through to find your way back home. If these words are opening something inside you, stay close. Subscribe. We are not running from the wound anymore. We are walking through it, together. There are gardens inside you that were never allowed to bloom. There are songs inside you that no one ever stayed long enough to hear. There are rooms inside you that have never been entered, not even by yourself. When they left, they didn't just walk away from your life. They walked away from your silence, your unspoken needs, your suppressed rage, your abandoned dreams. They left behind the parts of you were too afraid to show them. And when they left, those parts began to cry out, louder, fiercer, more raw than you had ever allowed yourself to feel. The self, Jung's great and terrible self, rose from the forgotten basements of your being, dragging with it the broken mirrors, the crumpled letters, the keys to the rooms you had kept locked for decades. And you, fragile, furious, grieving, stood at the threshold of your own soul for the first time. Carl Jung warned us of the shadow, the buried world of everything we are taught to fear within ourselves. The shadow is everything we were taught to hide, deny, or shame. Our rage, our grief, our wildness, our hunger. It is not evil. It is simply the parts of ourselves waiting to be remembered. Carl Jung told us clearly, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. When they loved you, you hid your shadow. You smiled when you wanted to scream. You forgave when you wanted to run. You clung when you wanted to roar. When they left, the shadow flooded back, merciless, honest, alive. You thought you lost love, but what you lost was your disguise. And what you found, if you were willing to survive the drowning, was the voice you buried under years of needing to be chosen. I will tell you another story. There was a man who loved a woman who made him feel invincible, at first. She adored him, praised him, worshipped him. But she never really saw him. She saw the man he pretended to be. The brave one, the strong one. The one who never cried, never doubted, never failed. And so he built his whole life around that image. And he wore the mask so well that he almost forgot it was a mask at all. Until the day she left, without warning, without a fight. At first he shattered, then he hardened. Then years later, sitting alone in a tiny apartment filled with old trophies and hollow victories, he wept. Not for her, but for the boy he had once been. The boy who was soft, the boy who was scared, the boy who had needed to be held, not worshipped. And he realized she hadn't abandoned him. She had abandoned the mask he could no longer sustain. She had left because the real him, the wounded, trembling, beautiful him, was beginning to surface, and the life he had built to hide from himself was already crumbling. You are not mourning them. You are mourning the shelter their illusion provided. You are not grieving their departure. You are grieving the collapse of a life where you could pretend that your soul could survive, half fed, half heard, half held. Their leaving is not the end of your story. It is the end of the chapter where you were willing to betray yourself for the comfort of being less alone. You are not being punished. You are being liberated. The house they left you in may look like ruins, but it is the sacred ground where you will build a life you do not have to abandon yourself to belong to. There is a house you must walk through alone, a house built not from brick and stone, but from mirrors. Each hallway lined with reflections you spent a lifetime avoiding. Each room echoing with the voice you silenced to survive. When they left, they pushed you to the doorstep of that house. When they left, they forced you to stand before the mirrors that no longer lied for you. At first, you will want to run. You will want to smash the reflections. You will want to scream that it was them, always them, who broke you. But slowly, trembling, sobbing, aching, you will realize the truth Carl Jung tried to prepare us for. He told us, "We meet ourselves time and again in 1,000 disguises on the path of life." They were one of those disguises, a beautiful, necessary, sacred disguise. But they were never the destination. The real encounter was always waiting, in the mirror, in the eyes of the abandoned self, in the face you thought you had to destroy to be loved. You are not here to punish yourself for trusting them. You are not here to erase the memories, the tenderness, the sweetness that was real. You are here to gather the parts of yourself that you gave away, believing they were unworthy of staying. You are here to pick up the laughter you muted, the rage you buried, the dreams you abandoned, the voice you choked back into silence. You are here to kneel in the ruins of the life that fell apart, not to mourn it endlessly, but to sift through the ashes for the seeds of the self you almost lost. Because the leaving was never the betrayal. The betrayal would have been building a life around your own absence. The betrayal would have been staying small enough to keep them comfortable. The betrayal would have been choosing someone else's comfort over your own becoming. Carl Jung revealed that this sacred process has a name. He called it individuation, the slow, painful, beautiful journey of coming back into wholeness. Individuation is the sacred journey of returning to yourself, gathering all the broken pieces, the exiled voices, the forgotten dreams, and becoming whole again, not through perfection, but through integration. Carl Jung explained it with rare clarity when he said, "Individuation means becoming an individual, and insofar as individuality embraces our innermost, last, and incomparable uniqueness, it also implies becoming one's own self. You are not becoming someone new. You are becoming someone ancient, the one you were always meant to be. Not the version they loved, not the version they left. The one who existed before fear began carving you into smaller shapes. The one who never needed to beg to be chosen. The one who never needed to twist to be loved. The one who, even when abandoned by the world, never abandoned themselves." Tonight, if your chest aches, if your hands tremble, if the silence they left still roars inside your ribs, good. It means the wound is still alive. It means the self is still speaking. It means you are still capable of choosing your own return. They did not destroy you. They freed you. They freed the parts of you that could not survive another year imprisoned inside a life built on conditional love. They freed the voice you muted, the dreams you betrayed, the soul you hid. They left, so you could stay. They left, so you could come home. They left, because the life you are meant to live was waiting beyond the life you were willing to settle for. If your soul is still awake, if the wound still hums beneath your ribs, stay. Subscribe. Not because you need more noise, but because you deserve to remember who you were before the world taught you to forget. We are just getting started, and I would be honored to walk this path home with you. Not every door that closes is a punishment. Some doors close because your soul no longer fits the life you once begged for. They left, so you could rise. The house you are meant to live in is still waiting for you.